This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
In tonight's episode, we embark on a new series with Professor Kiran Bhagat called Own the Day, Own Your Life, where he will teach us how to make the moment-to-moment decisions throughout the day that will result in a healthier, more productive life, less prone to chronic illnesses. We also hear from the Botswana Stock Exchange later on in the program regarding the latest developments within the private sector and the stock market, respectively. But before we get to all that, Anthony Siwawa makes a case for venture capital financing. Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. So many of us love watching those business funding television programs where hopeful entrepreneurs get to pitch their ideas and innovations to wealthy investors and seasoned mentors. There's something quite inspiring about watching everyday people like you and I become enterprising masters of their own destiny. Probably because it allows us to fantasize about doing the same. However, the opportunities to access venture capital financing in Botswana are practically non-existent. By venture capital, we are talking about a type of funding for a new or growing business. It usually comes from venture capital firms, which specialize in building high-risk financial portfolios. With a venture capital, the venture capital firm gives the startup funding in return for equity in a startup. Venture capital addresses the financial needs of entrepreneurs who are not big enough to list and who do not have the hard assets required to secure financial assistance from a bank. This type of financing provides the fuel for innovation sorely needed across various industries in Botswana currently. Our guest this evening, Anthony Siwawa, founder and managing director of Venture Partners Botswana, says that insisting that Botswana's pension funds, valued at 82 billion pula in December 2017 by the regulator, invest just 2 to 3% of their total resources into local SMEs through venture capital funds could be game-changing.
Venture capital funding or financing is a product that utilizes what I often term contractual savings. So it actually says madiara dirisang ara savang more the pension funds zarona or the insurance schemes zarona. A portion of that gets allocated to or gets pooled by people like ourselves. And once we have pooled that capital into one aggregate bowl, and then we take that money and look for private businesses that are growing or that are starting up. If it's venture capital, it's focused mostly on startup businesses. And if it's private equity or what we call growth capital investing, then the focus are more businesses that are growing or that are expanding. For us as VPB, we focus predominantly on companies that are expanding. Expanding, looking for expansion capital, either buying other companies, bringing a new product line, or expanding across borders. And in other parts of the continent, we focus predominantly on healthcare, private equity financing. So we invest in hospitals, healthcare systems, healthcare financing, etc. How does that improve or contribute to growth of an economy? The short of it is that venture capital, private equity investors becomes partners to government to help fund the economy. It becomes another source of capital injection into the economy. Right now, when we're talking growth, more economy of Botswana, there's a lot of talk about diversification of the economy from diamonds, because a significant amount of capital flow is coming predominantly from a single commodity. In this case, we're basically saying this becomes another conduit for flow of capital into the economy coming out of our own savings. And we are able to then take that money, identify specific niche areas or specific areas, whether it is transport and logistics, where we invested and grew and created the largest transport business in the country, employing a lot of people, having a lot of dependencies or dependents, away from the business yahorumende. So it makes life a little bit easier for government, because there's another partner in the economy or partners in the economy to help contribute to economic growth. It also brings strategic focus, business capacity, and also international relationships into our businesses, such that those businesses can grow and be sustainable in the long term. And as a function of that, also the venture capital investor becomes a shareholder and a risk taker in all these other businesses, in private business, which the government does not participate in. Now, if you are a risk taker, that means if you are sharing the risk, that means when there's a problem in the business, you are the first person there together with your partner to solve the problem. And as you well know, in businesses, we have problems all the time. And it's always better to have
someone who has a
somebody
stake.
who has a stake in it, because then they become a real partner in times of need. And that's exactly how I believe you then enforce significant growth in private businesses, which ensures economic growth. Challenges, Mogai, have always been, I think, around aligning the growth of our contractual savings in terms of pension funds and the regulatory requirements.
Welcome back to First Issues. Last year, venture capital funding in Africa is said to have topped $560 million, up 53% year on year. Anthony Siwawa of Venture Partners Botswana says Botswana is missing out. As we pick up our conversation with him regarding what venture capital could do for this economy, he gives us examples of countries that are already well on their way.
We just have to take one of our neighbors who has this exact same metrics like us, Namibia, regulatory environment that significantly drives the growth of the asset class, of the private equity asset class. We've been investing in Namibia since 2010 or 11, and the regulations in Namibia changed for the betterment of the industry in 2009, where they enforced a minimum that the pension funds or all contractual savers had to contribute to. And I think at the time it was 1.75%. And I think that has gone up, went up in 2016 to 3.5. So I think the Namibian industry has 120 or 130 billion Namibian dollars. And so you can imagine there's a significant amount of inflow into the market. The argument that's often used is that, but where are the assets for that cash to acquire? My answer is always leave that to the specialists to find the assets, because they will find them. And when they do find them, they will make sure that they grow and they will return capital ultimately.
So basically, most other countries are asking that a small fraction, less than 5% of all pension funds is circulated within their countries of origin.
For private business.
For private business. And we are maybe missing an opportunity in that regard in Botswana.
I think absolutely. We don't have a floor. We've said that you can allocate some money to private business, but your maximum must be X. Yeah. But there is no floor. In other words, you could do zero and you still be compliant. Yeah. And so
whereas in other countries,
there's a minimum, there's a floor.
With which, if you don't adhere to,
you will get
fined.
penalties. Yes, yeah. there is a penalty. You have to meet that minimum requirement. And some countries staggered it and said, we're starting from zero, so next year you must have X, and next year, but after 5 years you must have achieved a certain minimum. It's I think for us, where in a country like Botswana, where you have the stock exchange with 22 or 25 companies, and you have, 9,000 private companies, you need to have a formalized structure that ensures that there is capital flow to the majority of companies in the country. It doesn't mean that all those companies will get access to funding, but at least you have a structured methodology or capability that ensures that there are funds available for private businesses should they qualify.
Thank you for staying with us. As mentioned at the beginning of this program, tonight marks the beginning of cardiologist Professor Kiran Bhagat's new series entitled Own Your Day, Own Your Life. This follows on from our attempts throughout the year to draw attention to the growing threat posed by non-communicable diseases the world over. We're talking about both the developed and the developing world. By now, we fully appreciate that this threat exists as a result of people eating more processed and junk foods instead of healthy fruits, vegetables, and lean meats, and leading more sedentary lifestyles. The impact on the economy is immeasurable. Absenteeism as a result of chronic illness, presenteeism because of an inability to carry out work responsibilities effectively, reduced quality of life for entire households as incomes are compromised and family members take on caretaker roles, spending and opportunities compromised by healthcare bills, and the wider economy suffering a loss of labor force and a strain on healthcare expenditure. The list goes on and on. So for those of you who are now rightfully concerned and are looking to adopt healthier habits to reduce your chances of developing diabetes, heart disease and other chronic non-communicable diseases, this new preventative series with Professor Bhagat will guide you as to the right food and lifestyle choices to make moment by moment throughout your day. We understand that when trying to live and eat healthier, there can be so much conflicting and confusing information out there. Fad diets, trendy workouts that come and go, questionable advice as to how much sleep to get, water to drink, foods to eat, and more. This before you even get to the growing list of strange alternative therapies. Professor Bhagat explains how he aims to cut through all this noise and help you down the right path over the next few weeks.
We've been talking about a lot of the lifestyle diseases. We've talked about diabetes and blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, and some of the things that affect our population. And we've driven home the point that these are largely lifestyle diseases. So in order to make it more relevant to the public that are listening and to those that think, oh, this doesn't really affect me, it was important to make sure that we explain to them how does one make this practical in terms of how do they get up in the morning, what do they do, how do they exercise, what sort of foods do they eat for breakfast, lunch and supper, how do they own their day and as a result own their life. And I guess, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, so your life isn't built in a day, and life is not a sprint, it's a slow run. And so we wanted to sort of take the public through a day in somebody's life that is healthy.
Because it is about the day-to-day decisions, how you take care of your rest, what you eat, moment to moment, cumulatively, that results in lifestyle.
Absolutely. All the diseases we've talked about, whether it's stroke or blood pressure or diabetes, don't suddenly appear. It is a misconception that suddenly your blood pressure is high or that suddenly you go to the doctor and the sugar is high. It's been there for a while as a result of the choices that you've been making on a day-to-day basis. With diabetes, it's lack of exercise, it's the wrong foods, it's perhaps stress, and the same with blood pressure. It may be that you've been taking too much salt, you've again not been exercising, and then all these cumulative day by day, minute by minute lifestyle changes begin to affect you in the diseases that we've talked about. So you're right, it's a day by day, minute by minute approach.
Taken from someone who does try to do the right thing and has come across such a wealth of sometimes contradicting information regarding how much water to drink, which foods are right for you, which cause inflammation, which don't, and how much sleep every person needs. I think this will be a very educational series.
I think so, Namit. So I think it's going to perhaps make the public understand that they are their best doctor. Listen to the body. If the body's thirsty, then drink. Don't go by guidelines which seem to change. Everybody says, it's 8 glasses of water or, 1.5 liters a day. Some spiritual churches say, a liter a day in the morning it must be a must. Fasting should be. So there are a lot of things that we need to break myths on, but at the same time also make sure that the public are aware that they are their best doctor. They know when there's a pain, they realize there's a pain. And if somebody says, we've done all the tests and there's nothing that's coming up, if the pain is still there, we've done the wrong tests. So that's the purpose of this, empower yourself.
In the weeks to come on this series, we're going to be exploring the healthy habits to adopt from the moment you open your eyes in the morning till you close them to go to bed at night. Beginning next week with the good choices to make before you even have your breakfast. But do stay tuned, there's more to come after the break. Thank you for staying with us. At this point in our program, we help you with ways in which you can keep track of the performance of your shares, as well as detail the role of the Central Securities Depository of Botswana, or CSDB, in all this buying and selling of shares.
The CSDB was established in 2008, and it operates what we call a CSD system, which is a system that acts as a registry and custody of securities listed on the stock exchange. This is to say, all the shares that you see that are listed and are available for trading on the exchange are held electronically under the CSD by shareholders in their individual electronic CSD accounts. So the CSD's mandate there is to make sure that these securities are held safe, and there is reporting on the number of securities that are held for each of the shareholders that have shares in listed companies. Once you've bought the shares, it's quite necessary that you keep track of your investments. Keeping track simply means be familiar or be conversant with the information that affects the value of your investment. And there are several ways to do this. You can go to the broker anytime, you can phone them, you can email them and ask them about their views on the shares that you've bought. The brokers carry out a lot of research, so they should be able to tell you that according to their own opinions or their own research, they see this particular stock performing in this particular manner over a particular period of time, and therefore they would have a recommendation as to whether you should continue to hold that stock, or you should sell it, or you should buy more, or you should buy more of it. You can also ask them about prospective investments to put your money into ETFs, bonds, and the likes. The other method of keeping track of investment is to always review or get in touch with the information that is put out by the BSE. For example, this information on the prices of securities and every other information that listed companies put out regarding their operational performance, financial performance, can be accessed on the BSE website, and also the listed companies themselves. You'd also find information about the performance of the market on a report that we call the Daily Market Report that comes out daily, circulated by email, and also posted on the BSE website every day.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?